So this is unusual, is it not, Ken? This is a place known as the Rocket Docket. They get things moving. January 5th, did it seem like there was any alternative given everything that Lisa just laid out?
Yes, and I don't think that January 5th is going to hold as a trial date, Chris, because the prospects for discovery in this case are enormous. Just take, for example, the idea that James Comey and his lawyers want to bring a motion for selective prosecution to get this case thrown out on those grounds. They are going to want to get every scrap of paper, every communication between the White House and the Justice Department, between Justice Department attorneys, between FBI agents, everything to do with how this case was brought, who didn't want to bring it, why the U.S. attorney was fired when he said it wasn't a valid case. They're going to want all of that stuff. They're even going to want a recording of the grand jury proceedings where Lindsay Halligan brought this case and got 14 grand jurors to agree to indict it. And so that's going to take some time. That's not something that can be done even within a few months. That alone, and then, as Lisa said, you have the new prosecutors coming in who don't know anything about the case, that are just getting their arms around it, so they need time to get up to speed. And so this is going to take quite a bit of time, I think, before this thing gets to trial.
So, Rob, you know James Comey, and I thought the stuff that Lisa talked about, those textural elements of today, were fascinating. From, a reminder that the daughter got fired, but now she is comforting the mom, and the fact that James Comey is lingering, somebody who is very familiar with being in a courtroom. What do you think the days and weeks and months ahead look like for him?
I think he's very confident, but then again, this is his first time on the other side of the aisle. So that has to be, before, if he was confident about a trial, if he was really feeling good about it, he was going to get a conviction. He wasn't going to go to jail. So I think that probably came into it this morning, but I think he's very confident. His family, made up of lawyers, his daughter, and they are probably confident because they understand the law, and his lawyer does. I think it's probably hardest on his wife. Seeing her husband up there, and they're very close, a very tight family. I think it's probably toughest on her because she, again, is seeing this happen to someone she loves. But I think he's confident. I think he absolutely knows if this goes to trial and he gets a jury, he's going to win the case. I think he's going to hope it's going to be thrown out beforehand. But I also think he probably wants his day in court. I think he wants to have a jury tell America that he's not guilty. Though it is one of those things that puts more pressure on the family having to go through that trial and it not being thrown out. But I think it definitely, him on the other side of the aisle, probably hit home this morning as she talked about that like little lapse up there, realizing that he is fighting for his life and he's not just prosecuting.
So, Lisa, if what James Comey wants, understandably, is his day in court, if what he wants is vindication, what does the Trump White House want? Is it only a success if they get a conviction?
I think that's true, Chris. It's only a success if they get a conviction. But I want to pause here and say there has been public reporting from other outlets, and I believe our own, that there are multiple investigations that might be going on with respect to former federal law enforcement and whether or not they broke the law, right? And so this may turn out not to be the only case that's being prosecuted against Jim Comey. This could be not the only district that's prosecuting a case against Jim Comey. This case was brought when it was because the Eastern District of Virginia was ramming up against the statute of limitations for a false statements to Congress charge, because that charge is based on testimony that Jim Comey gave on September 30th of 2020 while he was sitting at his home and testifying over Zoom. That's the reason that the Eastern District of Virginia has venue in this case. So I think for the Trump White House, a conviction is what they want, but it's not necessarily this conviction. And I want to say to you and our viewers, there are reasons to believe that James Comey may never get his day in court, and that would be a victory for him. Pat Fitzgerald outlining today that there are two motions he intends to bring on October 20th. One is for vindictive and selective prosecution, basically saying this prosecution is in retaliation for Jim Comey exercising his free speech rights and talking against Donald Trump. But the second motion is based on Lindsay Halligan's being being unlawfully appointed as the interim U.S. attorney. And presumably what Fitzgerald is going to argue is because Lindsay Halligan was the only person who signed the indictment in this case, if she was unlawfully appointed, the whole thing must fall. And so much as Jim Comey told the world on Instagram he wants to go to trial, you better believe that Pat Fitzgerald is going to want to try those two options first to ensure we're never back in this courtroom for a trial.
So, Sarah, let me get your take on this and the White House and what might be going on in there. It is no secret that Trump has escalated from his first term. It is no secret, because he has said it, that he is seeking retribution. Do you see this potentially going on in multiple venues, that even if there isn't a success in the form of a conviction, there are other things that this president can do?
Yeah, this is exactly what I warned about in the lead up to the 2024 election, that I knew that a second Trump term was not going to be about bettering the lives of everyday Americans. It was going to be about him wanting retribution against his perceived enemies. And James Comey is one of those folks who is at the top of Trump's list. And we're seeing this play out now with them indicting him. But also, as you mentioned, I think that there are other avenues in which they could seek and get revenge against people, whether that's making them rack up lawyer fees in frivolous lawsuits, or having the IRS target them. There's a number of different ways in which they can go after people and make life hard for them. And something that really stuck out to me was MSNBC's own reporting today about how an FBI agent was fired because he refused to do a perp walk with James Comey. And I believe that the Trump administration wanted this perp walk to happen, to make a public spectacle of this, to make an example out of James Comey and show their power and flex their muscle of, look at what we're doing to this man who spoke out against us and went against us. We're going to do this to others as well, and you should be scared. And I think that there will be a long list of others who will follow. James Comey's just the first coming, and maybe there will be other charges that they'll levy against him. But I'm sure that this is just the beginning, and that they will no doubt and undoubtedly go against other perceived enemies of Donald Trump.
The chilling effect. So, Ken, in Senate testimony yesterday, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, was pressed on whether the White House had played a role in this Comey case. I want to play for folks what she said.
Did you discuss James Comey with the President of the United States? He was sitting just to your left.
Well, 2 seats down, yes. 2 seats down. And I am not going to discuss any conversations I've had or not have with the President of the United States.
Because the American public is entitled to know.
If there was, Ken, any coordination with the White House, could that impact any move for dismissal?
Oh, 100%. That will be the key issue in the motion to dismiss this case on the grounds of selective prosecution. The question is, how much can the Comey team get in discovery? For example, that conversation that was just described there, likely the White House would assert executive privilege and say that, you know, the Comey team in this trial has no business learning what was said between the Attorney General and the President. But what if, for example, another White House aide, Stephen Miller or someone else, was coordinating with the Justice Department about this case? Or what if there are communications between Justice Department officials about the pressure they were under from the White House? Or what if the fired U.S. attorney is brought to testify before a congressional hearing? Or there's just many ways in which evidence can be gleaned that would be relevant to this Comey trial about whether the White House essentially orchestrated this prosecution. There's a lot of evidence in the public domain, but there's a lot more that we haven't seen.